Hello, everybody, and welcome to the White Noise podcast. For some people, this will be welcome back. For others, this may be the first time you've ever heard our voices. Either way, this is going to be a really good episode for you because it's not going to be like our others. We're not talking about a film today. We're not talking about a TV show, not even talking about a book. We're going to be talking about our favorite subject, us. So this podcast has been running for over 2 years now. We've loved doing it. But more importantly, we've loved to see how it's grown, how our followers have grown. You know, we're getting to interact with a lot more of you, and that has been so much fun. But we realized that obviously people aren't going to go back to like necessarily our first ever one and, know who we are, what we're about. Some people who might have been listening for a long time sometimes might listen and be like, this isn't what you said you were going to be doing in your first ever episode. Why has it changed? So this is just us today explaining who we are, what this podcast is, and kind of the direction we hope to take it in this new year.
Brilliantly said, Sky.
Thank you.
So
See, I've gotten more confident. I think that's one thing that's changed, even though it did just take me 5 minutes to start.
I mean, like Sky said, there are new listeners, there are old listeners. For anyone that has been listening since the beginning, you would know as well as we that we've gotten better. I'm stumbling right now. We're a bit out of practice, but I would say when we started, like, we didn't realize how much we said how much we said how much we couldn't think on the spot. We've definitely grown as podcast hosts, but then we've also grown as people, which I think is something we kind of wanted to like touch on because tastes change, interests change, and that's kind of been reflected in our episodes. So I feel like stuff going forward is going to be different from what it would have been when we started out.
I also feel like we've gotten less perfect as time's gone on. Like, not to say by any means any of our first episodes were perfect. Dear God, some of the sound on them were awful, and that was my fault. We used to be so worried about being like really on it with like sound quality, and when we finally introduced video quality and things like that. And then as time's gone on, we realized part of the charm of what we, the things that we put out is like it can be a bit messy, it can be a bit mismatched. Like, we do go off on tangents a lot, so that is one thing for any new listeners. We do that, we'll go off on tangents. This episode is meant to be a shorter episode, but we'll see what happens because we don't even have a subject to center around today. But yeah, so I guess the best way to start for like people who really don't know who we are is I'm Sky, this is
Leanna.
Yeah. The only reason I did that is because the first time we ever recorded like an introduction to this podcast, I felt really bad because I introduced myself and then I introduced you, and then I felt like I didn't let you talk because I got so nervous, so I just kind of kept talking.
I'd say that's one thing we've gotten better at, though. Is like we kind of know when each other wants to say so, or like we can kind of guess this is where the other one will want to say something.
I also think we got over the fact that, we can talk over each other a lot, and it's not because we're rude or we're interrupting. We're just very excited by the things that we talk about. And we both also, come to terms over the course of having this podcast, I'm sure Leanna won't mind me saying that, we have ADHD. And two people with ADHD who are really passionate about the topics they're talking about are going to talk. Yeah, we're going to talk over each other a lot. It's never as bad as what we think it is. But things like that we've just gotten used to. So I feel like it just flows a lot better.
I also find those moments really fun, when you're listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video or watching anything really. It's people love it in films, you see people talk all the time about like fun scripts and screenplays with overlapping dialogue. Like it doesn't sound like a real conversation if we're just kind of like, and now you take the stage. Like this is more like a real conversation, which we said back in our first introduction is what we wanted this to be like. We wanted it to be like the chats you have when you've just seen a film at the cinema, or like the chats you have with your friends about films, less like interviews or like classroom settings, just fun, casual, engaging.
Even though at one point some of our YouTube videos did start looking like interviews because we've learned a lot along the way, including how to use Zoom, because we're now grandmas, and by society standards I don't think we're old, but to certain generations we are. Once we first started using Zoom to record video for a lot of our episodes, we didn't know how to remove our names from the videos, and we were just like, it's fine, it's part of the charm. Like, we say that a lot when we can't figure out stuff. It's just part of the charm. So yeah, sometimes they did look like interviews, even though we didn't want it to come across that way.
It's just that homegrown, made in the shed quality, you know, embrace it.
Yeah, but even then, you know, I think, like I said, we're a great duo, and we have been for how long have we been friends now?
So we met probably in like year 7, which is when you're 11 for any listeners outside the UK.
Oh God, that's a long time.
We've known each other for like 14, 15 years, which is crazy. Like, we've known of each other, but I'd say we've been
we've known of each
we've
other.
Been friendly since we were like 14, 15, and then we've been like properly friends, I would say, since we were 16. So like 9 going on 10 years. That's bonkers.
That is. I mean, because we, you know, to be fair, you saying we know of each other sounded a bit weird, but I guess it does make sense because and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, like growing up as teenagers, our social circles, like we were in different social circles, but then it was like a Venn diagram. We would like meet in the middle sometimes, and we shared, so 2 of the main classes we shared, which shaped us into the people we are, shaped this podcast, is media studies and English literature.
Perfect.
And I mean, like, I would just never forget, you know, basically Leanna would bring in, I can't even remember how it started, because I think this is also why we just work so well together as people, because it wasn't even like a conversation of, oh, I like this or I like that. I think just one day you just came in with a stack of films and you were like, watch these, and I was like, okay, and that was it.
You did as you were told.
I did every weekend for like a year probably, and that was secondary school. But do you know what's so weird? That's the only interaction we had with each other. We would talk about the movies that I'd watched in the lessons, but we wouldn't talk to each other outside of it. We wouldn't talk to each other in like the playground.
Not like on Messenger, nothing.
It wasn't until college where, again, I don't remember how it happened.
That was just a fluke accident. I tricked myself into thinking I was going to be a STEM girly, and I took maths. Did not last long.
You took maths?
Yeah.
I do not remember you taking maths.
I took maths. I was in a math form group. And
do you know what? I took business though.
Sorry?
I took business and I was in a business form group. Who were we?
You look back on it, don't you? And you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But I dropped out of math after about 3 weeks. And there was a space left in media, and I walked in and you were there. And I was like, I
was there with my milkshake, my bacon and cheese turnover.
Yeah, and this is interesting for like people that might not be familiar, but in the UK you kind of have sixth form, which is where, say, a secondary school has an attached kind of like college. So from 16 to 18 you're in a separate area of the school, and it's like a different kind of qualification. It's like the next qualification up. But then you also have like exterior colleges, which are their own thing. They're a lot bigger. They're like what Americans would think of as maybe like a campus.
Yeah.
So, like a uni campus, but it isn't uni. It's not for a degree. So basically this is like on a much bigger scale. This is in a completely different town. And it could have been any of the media classes, but just by pure chance I walk in Sky.
What I was in. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like,
and the reason I mentioned the milkshake and the turnover, obviously, again, this is something you'll learn about us as we just drop into conversation the more you listen to us. I am vegetarian. I wasn't at the time. So, and I don't know why, but bacon and cheese turnovers had like a hold on me, and there was a shop right by the college. So every morning, because we always had media studies, there was one day a week, I think it might have been a Thursday. Yes. We had media studies in the morning, and we would literally just watch a film or an episode most of the time. And I would go to the shop that was near the college, get my milkshake, get my bacon and cheese turnover, and then I would go into media studies, and we would just end up watching something and talking shit. Little secret you might have not known, I started to buy it because you found it funny, and it got us talking, which is really, really lame.
I remember it got even better because we got to a point, I think it might have been in the second year, where we both bought the same thing. Do you remember we used to, and I honestly, looking back on it, it was so bad. Like, I don't know how teenagers do it. We used to buy like a fat brownie and a can of Coke each, and this would be in the AM. And we would sit in that media class consuming so much sugar, it would like heighten us for the entire time.
But it was good. It felt so good. And do you also, here comes the first tangent, do you remember those paninis in the cafeteria?
Oh my God, I loved them.
Right. Yeah. So I would never eat meat again. I can't. It repulses me. But that specific cheese and chicken tikka panini, I would do it. I would
You
break
don't
my
like
vows for
it.
it. It was
We
so
used to,
good.
do you remember as well? We used to skip classes all the time so we could sit, eat paninis, drink cans of Coke, and play The Sims
I knew you
in
were going to call me out.
the
I knew
college
you were
cafe.
going to.
No, but it wasn't just you, it was me as well. I
Yeah,
was a
but
little
wait, it
K-pop
was
stan.
just
You
me.
were a Sims obsessive. Like, we would both just be
Yeah, I
sat
really
there.
was.
We got noticed once or twice by lecturers whose classes we were meant to be in, if you remember
Hmm.
that. That was
Yep.
bad.
Mine was really bad because the cafeteria we were in was in where my English language class was, and it was literally next door to the class that I was skipping. And the worst part is I'm just gonna call myself out for this. I wasn't just playing Sims, was I, Leanna? I was making those little shitty Sims movies that everyone used to see on YouTube. I
Oh,
never posted them. I don't even have access to them anymore because I think the laptop they were on got corrupted as fuck. That's what I used to do. But you know what? I took all of like the tropes and things that I'd learned in media and I applied it to these little Sims movies. So in a way, they were very educational.
really? You were
And
just doing coursework.
that's what I used to convince myself. And I still remember because I doubt she's listening to this, and I couldn't even remember her name to tell you anyway. But the media teacher that we had she was a great teacher, but she was very not strict. I can't think of the right word. She was very proud of what she did.
The one in
Like the
in first year.
yeah,
Oh God.
right. The only thing to say is that she was really proud of what she did, which is great, but it just meant that like to her there was a wrong way of doing stuff. And what I'm about to say, people will probably agree with, so stick with me here. For one, I think it must have been first year, we had to make a short video of some kind. And believe it or not, no, I did not make it on Sims, even though it was really tempting to. I decided to make a short music video to, I think it was Natalia Kill's Wonderland.
This is before she was cancelled, mind.
Not me, Natalia Kills, just in case anybody knows. So because I was really obsessed with the song just because of the Alice in Wonderland, obviously imagery of it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. But because of like, early onset ADHD that I did not get diagnosed with until a lot later in life, I procrastinated a lot, which meant that I didn't actually start even filming until maybe the week before we had to hand in the assignment, which my teacher knew. So understandably, she had her eye on me as someone that was not going to do well. And then the worst part is because I had such a short limit of time and, we both had to get the bus to and from college, which I had never actually had to do before because I used to live really close to my schools. So my time management was ridiculously bad. I couldn't stay after college to like get the time in to edit it. So I said to her, I was like, could I just edit it on Windows Movie Maker? And she looked at me like I was insane. And I was like, no, I can do it because what had I been doing? That's what I had been using to make my Sims and little movies. And I thought they were really good. And you know what? She kind of went, if you can do it, I'll give you a distinction. And I was like, you're on. So I did it. And Leanna was in it.
Slow.
Another way we became really close. I dragged her into it because I panicked, and I, even to this day, don't have a lot of friends. So I used my boyfriend at the time, my little sister, and Leanna and her sister in what I now think was somebody's back garden. I made us like literally trek like on the way to Mordor style
On like an open road.
to get to literally though with camera equipment, this little granny trolley filled of snacks and that weren't even like substantial. Like Liana just explained, we used to just drink Coke and eat brownies, so they weren't even like hearty substantial snacks. We trek all this way because we were trying to get to a woods that was really close to where I lived, but my sense of direction is also not good. So we ended up in what looked like kind of like a rural wooded area, but I'm pretty sure it was someone's back garden because I remember knocking on somebody's door asking if the plot of land belonged to anybody, and the person who answered the door was like, no, I don't think so, you can use it, but it had a fence around it we had to climb over. Anyway, long story short, we filmed it. I don't know how Leanna still wanted to be friends with me after that because I was so stroppy. It was hard, and I was the kind of person that if anything went wrong I got really annoyed. But also it was kind of my own fault.
That has changed a lot. You're not like that as you
I don't think I am.
You know
I'm
what
a
I mean?
lot I think I'm a bit more go with the flow
I
now. I
don't think
guess.
we'd be able to do this podcast if it
Oh
wasn't the
no,
case. If it's
no.
still like that, can you imagine?
I would be a nightmare. I still think I'm a nightmare to work with, but I think it's because I have that like lingering echo of what I was like.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, yeah, we filmed it. I edited it on Windows Movie Maker, which to make matters worse was on a really old laptop that crashed every 5 minutes. But I got my distinction. That's all that matters.
That's what matters. I just
Yeah.
find it so funny to think that like we've both been so obsessed with like film and media and literature and everything for so many years, and it took us so long to do something with it because
Hmm.
I don't know, like even in the same class, do you remember I did the magazine photo shoot and I made my sister be in it and you helped me like edit it.
Yes.
And
That
then
was so good
also
though.
made the horror movie trailer and I did the same thing as you. I procrastinated it and then I made my sister be in it. And I just like filmed her through the windows. It was kind of like The Strangers or something.
Hmm.
Looking back on it, we put her through a lot.
Oh, we did. We
Oh,
did.
we did actually.
Yeah.
I've never really thought
Yeah.
about
I didn't even think about the fact that she was in mine and yours. And
she was
I was
in
literally like,
she was in photo shoots, our
oh
victim.
dear. Yeah. Probably to be fair, probably my sister as well, because like she was my sister. How old would she have been during that? Like
Was it 14?
younger, I probably would have said.
Mm.
Yeah, but she was yeah, I mean, you know what? We both did really well on the course and our friendship became stronger for it. So I'd like to thank the trauma we definitely inflicted upon our sisters.
So worth it. I also
Yeah.
think that it's really funny to think it wasn't just college. It was even going into like secondary schools, like being 15, 16, we were in media class together.
Hmm.
Like you said, we were in media and literature together.
Hmm.
Our literature teacher definitely liked films because she got us to watch film adaptions a couple
Of a
times.
lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet and such. I
Hmm.
remember in media we had to like make film posters and everything like that. There was a lot of crossover between it all. So it
Hmm.
makes so much sense that in this podcast we don't just talk about film, we don't
Hmm.
just talk about TV, we don't just talk about books or whatever. We blend it all together. And I honestly would not have it any other way. I'm so happy we've made that decision to do a bit of everything.
I don't even think it was even a decision because when we first started this podcast, it was mainly film. Not that we ever intended to stick to it. Like, I can't even remember. It's been so long now. But I think even in that one, we were like, oh, we'd like to branch out into different stuff. It was just, one of the biggest things I think we've managed to overcome in the 2 years we've been doing this is just worrying what people think about what we say. Like, we're not saying anything like controversial or not in that kind of sense. Like, we might have opinions of particular films or directors or stuff that not everyone will agree with, but we were worried about offending people, I think, sometimes,
Which
or
is
like,
kind of laughable as well, considering like we had like 2 followers.
yeah, which were us. But this is the thing, I think we robbed ourselves of like so much interaction we had with people. Like, one of the reasons, I was saying this to Anna, I think it would have been a good idea to just do this reintroduction is because recently, back in October, we did something we had wanted to do for a long time, which was to record our 7 days of horror, which we hope to do every October moving forward. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you can't guess, it's over the 7 days leading up to Halloween. We just have an episode to do with horror tropes, our horror films we love. But from that, we actually managed to get like quite a few new followers. We were able to interact with people. Most of the interaction and the comments that were left were lovely. Some of them weren't, some of them were your stereotypical, like, I think on one of the TikTok clips I posted, we talked about horror comedies, and I said, maybe my most controversial opinion to date, that directors looking to like get into film or like just horror just stop making horror films and start making horror comedies. Obviously, I don't literally mean stop making horror films. I love horror, it's one of my favorite genres, but because I love it so much, I know how difficult it is to pull off, whereas horror comedy gives you a lot more to play with. If you'd like to learn more, do go listen to that episode. But anyway, someone had just left a comment saying like, no, this isn't it. And I was like, do you want to elaborate on that? And they were like, people watch horror to be scared. And I was like, do they? Do you
Mm.
know everybody in the world? I was like, they do not.
It's such like a very narrow mindset of an entire genre, like a
Yeah.
massive ancient genre. It's been around for God knows how long. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why would you want it to just stay so rooted? Like, that goes completely against what we are interested in. I'd say most of the films and media that we've covered on this podcast are things that kind of play around with expectations and genre, and you know, we talk about interesting creators and filmmakers and writers. Like, that ain't our crowd. People that just kind of want
It's
things
really
to be
not.
a set way.
But it was comments like that that made me realize, like, why for so long have we like tiptoed around subjects, walked on eggshells, because we were worried about, like, oh, if someone maybe misinterpreted what we said, we would lose followers, because obviously that can happen. And when you're a smaller channel or like a smaller podcast, you know, when people either take stuff out of context, or, you know, sometimes, you know, we stumble when we're talking and we don't always say everything that we mean, or because me and Leanna have been friends for so long, we know what the other is trying to say, so we don't always finish the sentence necessarily. But all of that together, I think, at least for me, made me always second guess what I was going to say. And then I realized that the only people that were actually probably either getting offended or not liking what we were saying, those are the people we want to connect with anyway, so it just didn't make a difference.
Completely agree. Can't say
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we've gone on a little while now. Like Sky said, we were probably going to ramble and go on some tangents, but it's been really nice to kind of like hone in on why we started this, reminisce on what it was like when we started, reminisce on our friendship, look at how things have changed. It's just nice to see change, honestly, because I think if the podcast was exactly the same as it was when we started, we would have done something wrong. You know, it's good to grow, it's good to adapt, and we always want to be better. We always want to keep things interesting. So if you have any suggestions for episodes or things you'd like to hear, channels you'd like us to maybe do stuff with, podcasts you'd like us to interact with, or if, you know, you host your own podcast, reach out to us. We're not scary. All it takes is a comment or maybe a message on one of our social media channels. We always want to hear from people. Sky's brought up a bunch of times that we want to interact more, and I think probably going into 2023, not to, you know, put pressure on things, but that's something we'd like to do in the future.
I think that's pretty much it for now. You know, we've got a whole year, a whole new year stretching out before us. You know, we have a lot of plans that hopefully we'll stick to, because, you know, people who have been listening to us for a while know that, you know, unfortunately we have lives outside of this podcast. It's not quite what I meant, but, like, you know, every so often other things do have to come first, but we have a plan. It's a flexible plan, but I'm very excited, as I usually am, but I am very excited about the stuff that we have all lined up for this year. And it, like I said, it'd be really great for people to just, like, you know, share us around to people you think would really like to listen. You know, we are literally everywhere. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and we're at W Noise Podcast.
Yes.
I think that's what, everywhere we are. You think I know by now. But yeah, you can find us everywhere. We'll leave links to socials if you're watching on YouTube down below. If you're on Spotify, go to YouTube and you'll find them. And yeah, that's all I've got to say for today.
Yeah, I'm all done too. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like if, you know, you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.